In part 1, we left off with Cecille realizing if things did not change soon, she and her family would have the same fate as her mother. So Cecille decided to try hope. Maybe hope was stronger than the curse? She went to hope every day, but the mark grew bigger, she felt weaker, and her family only got worse. However, Cecille wouldn't let hope go. One day Cecille received a letter from the town doctor asking her to come to the hospital. Her grandmother was very sick and wanted to see her. Cecille grew very angry. She hated her grandmother for what she had done to the family. Initially, Cecille was going to let her grandmother die alone, but then had a better idea. She would go see the old evil woman before she died. Then she could remind her of all the horrible things she had said and done. On her way to the hospital, Cecille wondered if her hatred for her grandmother was greater than the curse. She realized it wasn't. She had hated her grandmother for a long time. Life had only gotten worse. Just as Cecille entered the hospital, she noticed her heart was hurting more than usual. She was about to go back home, but remembered her visit with Hope earlier that morning. Soon the pain appeared to be more bearable. Cecille took a deep breath before entering her grandmother's room. She was ready to say some really mean things to the old woman. After entering the room, however, she gasped, seeing the frail figure hidden under the blankets. She slowly walked towards the bed to see her grandmother's face for the first time ever. Her grandmother looked sad, pitiful, and even ashamed. She did not look as powerful as the words she had spoken over the family that one night. Cecille said, "Grandmother, do you remember?" Cecille sure did. She had lost a lot because of those curses. Her grandmother could no longer use her voice, so she nodded once. Then she looked away with tears starting to fall. Cecille looked at the older woman for a long time before speaking again. Finally she spoke. However, instead of reminding her grandmother of her wicked deeds, she made up a past filled with wonderful deeds that can only be shared between a grandmother and her loved granddaughter. Every once in a while, Cecille would ask, "Do you remember that, Grandma?" Every time her grandma would smile and nod yes. Cecille spent several hours sharing great memories which never happened, but made her grandmother's heart feel good. Before she left her grandmother, she kissed her cheek and said, "I love you, Grandma." She left knowing that would be the last time she would see her. She also knew that something had happened in her heart that day. Cecille felt sorry for her grandma because she missed out on all the love that was available to her. Cecille no longer hated her. She forgave and loved her even though she never really knew the older woman. When Cecille got home, she thought the mark on her body had shrunk a bit. Was she imagining things? Cecille also noticed she started looking forward to her daily visits with Hope. She even invited her family to come. Eventually, they accepted her invitation. Everyone agreed. Something was definitely different about Cecille. Cecille noticed something was definitely changing about them also. She loved it. They were becoming grateful and lovable. No one blamed Cecille anymore but became accountable for their own lives. Her family started visiting Hope by themselves. Best of all, they started to dream again. Those dreams came to pass because they now remembered what they had learned from Cecille as kids. One day Cecille woke up and the mark was completely gone. Cecille realized forgiveness and love were the powers that were greater than the family's curse. She wished her and her family had known that much sooner. Cecile and Jim lived a long, wonderful life together as each other's prince and princess. They never forgot what hope, forgiveness, and love did for their families. So, they introduced everyone they met to hope, forgiveness, and love so they too could break their own family curses. Cecile and Jim were truly blessed because of it. Jim and Cecile live in heaven now. However, their story continues on earth through their children and the many generations that followed. Cecile helped birth many nations. To this day, these nations rule the world with hope, forgiveness, and love as their guide. Thank you for listening to part 2 of Grandmother's Curse. Please give a thumbs up and subscribe if you enjoyed this story.